And we are recording. So good afternoon, everyone. It's 2:58. We will start promptly at 3 o'clock. Today's session is being live streamed on Facebook. Everyone, it's 2:58. We will start promptly at 3 o'clock. Today. All right. All right, welcome everyone. We will, after a news story about a woman doing some good work in her community in Alabama, we should have our speakers here, and each of you will be introduced, and you'll have about 7 minutes to share your perspectives. Talk about staying safe in COVID from your perspective and what's happening in your church, and what thoughts you want to share. And after each of the speakers has presented, we'll then open it up for conversation with the participants, both on Zoom and those who are joining via Facebook Live. And this week, we're also broadcasting on YouTube Live. We added YouTube because last week there was a problem with our recording. And so we want to make sure that, that we're able to keep the recording. So good afternoon. The Resilient American Communities of Bay County, which is a collaborative group of organizations, have been working since March of 2020 to monitor the weekly data, daily and then weekly data of the COVID-19 cases and the effect in our community. And so this afternoon is a fourth in a series of Zoom forums that we've sponsored, each with a different topic. Today it's COVID at the Crossroads, faith or fear. And so each of you who has been asked to come and share your perspectives will have an opportunity to do just that. As we are gathering, I do want to open with a story, a news story that we featured on our Facebook page about a woman in Panola, Alabama, who has gone around and has registered, not registered, but gotten folk in her community vaccinated. So we'll open with that, and then we'll move right into open with that, and then local news stories about what the state of COVID-19 is in our community.
This health clinic to Panola, Alabama is more than 30 miles away. And that's why Dorothy Oliver organized a pop-up vaccination clinic for her town of 144 people. Dorothy Oliver went door to door to answer her neighbors' questions about the vaccine and to get people signed up. Dorothy Oliver's determination is featured in the Panola Project, a new documentary from the New Yorker.
I've heard people saying they get sick, but
some people say they all hurt. They don't go hurt sometimes. Mine, I didn't have no problem with mine at all. I hate both of them. Didn't have no problem at all.
it didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
This Kimberly cousin. KIM,
I
KIMBER.
still can't believe you hesitate. Look at her smiling at me. You know I know you don't. You ready to take that shot?
You can put me down.
Yep, put him down. See, I got him, Nene. I'm good later.
The vaccination rate among adults in Panola, Alabama is now 94%, and it is 100% among people over the age of 65. And joining us now is Dorothy Oliver from Panola, Alabama. Also with us, Jeremy Levine and Rachel DeCruz, who directed and produced the Panola Project for the New Yorker documentary series. And Dorothy Oliver, let me begin with you. What gave you the idea to be the person who made sure everyone was getting vaccinated?
Because I saw the seriousness of this disease. And I decided that I'll just take charge and just talk to everybody that come into the store or either wherever I go and just talk to them and ask them, let them know how serious it is to go ahead and get that vaccination. So I didn't have any problem. Everybody just worked right with me.
How long, in your one-on-one encounters with people, talking them into this, how long does it usually take?
When I'm talking to them,
Yeah.
it don't take them long. You talk them into it, and I just tell them about how serious it is and how I'm working in my community to make sure that all of my people in my community get vaccinated, and it don't take that long for me to talk them into it. Probably just one person I had a hard time with, but most of them agree and go ahead and go get it. Ask me to go ahead on and schedule an appointment for them.
And do they tell you why they haven't been vaccinated already?
Yeah, so some of them say, I hadn't got it, I'm just scared. I don't want to get it. And some will say, I just gonna wait till somebody else, see how everything gonna go. That's what they tell me. I just want to wait, see how everything gonna go, and then I'm gonna probably take it.
So that's a clip of a news story from Panola, Alabama. And we'll move now to our news stories about what's happening locally.
You don't have enough of those.
All right. So we'll ask that if you would please mute your phone if you're not speaking.
I put in my request early. And on our little ETO sheet that we have to fill out when we want to take off, you got to put like your reason for taking off. I put that.
There is no vaccine for those under the age of 12. But as News 13's Alex Geropoulos tells us, a local pediatrician says there are steps parents can take to protect their kids.
Is definitely an increase in the number of COVID cases that we're seeing.
Dr. Rubina Azam is a pediatrician at Baldwin Pediatrics in Bay County. At her office within the last few weeks, she's seen an uptick in young patients coming down with the aggressive coronavirus viral infection.
We call it superimposed bacterial infection. You can get a pneumonia or bronchitis on top of that. So again, it's important for parents to know that if your kid has been exposed to COVID-19 or you suspect your kid has COVID-19, it's better that you bring your kid to us, the pediatrician, get them evaluated.
Azam says one of the reasons to blame for the spike in COVID cases within children is that school started recently.
A lot of kids come to our office and they complain of sore throat and they're thinking it's a strep throat. We test them and it's COVID-19. So if your kid has any symptom, just automatically think of COVID-19.
While the Pfizer vaccine is available for those 12 and older, there is no vaccine or antibody treatment available for younger kids under 12. Dr. Azam says the best line of defense is prevention.
And the best ways to stay safe from contracting COVID-19 yourself, Azam says, is to continue with that social distancing, mask wearing, and of course, quarantining if you do come in close contact with someone who is tested positive. In Bay County, I'm Alex Diateropoulos, News 13, Panhandle Strong.
On the rise here in Bay County, and many hospitals have been full of those patients. News Channel 7's Sam Martello joins us live from outside of the studio with a local doctor to talk about the state of COVID in our area. Sam?
Jessica, I am here this morning with Dr. Frank Merritt, local physician here. And now starting off, let's talk about the state of COVID here in Florida.
Once again, 16,000 people are hospitalized just in the state of Florida right now. 95%-ish are unvaccinated, about 5% are 5% are vaccinated, sorry. And like I said, contrary to what people want to believe, about 7.5% of those people, about 1,200 of them, are pediatric patients under the age of 19.
And now let's talk about here in Bay County. What are we seeing here?
Pretty much the same thing. I saw a report from Ascension Bay. It looked like it was about 94% was unvaccinated. So pretty much the same statistics. The doctors and nurses are working real hard. I talked to a lot of them ongoing, and you know, everybody's doing their best.
And now, like we've talked this morning, what can people do? We want to create solutions to problems.
Yes, thank you for prompting me. We talked about this. You know, to me, you got these two things. You got this side or that side, and there's so much information out there. A quick way to see if your information is correct is there's either going to be people that are solutions to this problem and providing solutions, and no solution is perfect, but they are still solutions. Or are you listening to somebody that's a problem for every solution? And my goal is to be part on the side that's a solution for this problem. What can I do? I can wear a mask, I can social distance, I can not go out to eat or not go to church while there's a surge like right now. And then when the surge goes back down, guess what? We can get back to having fun, going to those restaurants, churches, football games, stuff like that. So definitely want to be a solution for the problem, not a negative problem for every solution out there. And we were laughing just a minute ago. You know, my old football coach said, do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long. And I think the thing is right now, we see that this, you know, there's viral behavior and there's human behavior. We're not going to change the Delta variant. It's a bad bug. But what can we change? How can I change how my lifestyle is and what I'm doing right now? The UK and some other countries did cut back, to be able to call it a shutdown or whatever, for about 3 or 4 weeks, because the Delta variant is so fast. They were able to really flatten the curve and get rid of the Delta variant to a large degree. Am I for shutting things down? No, I want to have fun. I want to get back to church. I want to go to football games, all those things. But is there a time right now to pull back just to get this thing under control a little bit? I'm definitely for that. I was saying to Jessica when she walked out here, you know, you have to study to get smart. You have to work out to get fit. We may need to hunker down for 2 or 3 weeks to get this under control so we can enjoy that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that we like.
Well, Dr. Merritt.
So as we begin our discussion today, I wanted to put it in the context of what's going on here in Bay County. And so we've looked at the latest newscast to get that perspective. I want to thank each of our presenters who has agreed to and consented to be a part of our discussion today. And we've asked them to share their perspectives, and then we'll open it up for dialogue. So I want to thank each of the folks who've joined us this afternoon for that. I expect that we'll have a rich discussion. Again, this is being brought to you by the Resilient American Communities of Bay County. It's a collaborative organization of community-based organizations that have been looking at the COVID-19 information since March of 2020, working to be a part of bringing solutions to our community. I want to acknowledge Tony Bostic, who has taken the lead in helping us to put together vaccination events, testing events, so that we can bring to our community the latest that is available. So thank you, Tony. We'll go first now to Pastor Phyllis Greer. We'll ask each of you to share whatever background you'd like to share, and then move into talking about the COVID-19 in our community and what you as a pastor are seeing. And each of the pastors will ask if you'll take about 7 minutes. I will keep a clock, a time, and just give you a general reminder, because we do want to open it up so that there's discussion back and forth as well. So with that said, we'll go to our first speaker, Pastor Phyllis Greer. You're on mute.
Good afternoon to each of you. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. And I know that my situation is probably very different from yours, or perhaps it's very similar in the fact that I am a part of this community as well as being a pastor. So that alone separates us on two halves. People see us as yet being human and yet being faithful. In the particular church that I'm in at Goshen Evangelistic Ministries, we have a variety of ages that are with us. So from day 1 to day 2, it has been taught from the pulpit that we are faith believers. However, I have stressed that even in your faith, that there are different levels of faith. And if your faith is not where you can not take an aspirin, then take the aspirin because I need you to live. If your faith supersedes that, and that is where you are, that is where your individual faith is. We all go by that one scripture that now faith is the substance. And I like the way that it starts. And I promise you I won't preach because it says now faith. It refers to the time and the season that we're living in right now. But people, when it comes to COVID, several of them want to go back to the past, or they want to go back to things that have happened, or they want to go back to people who they say that it has happened to without having their own experience. And I believe that even Jesus himself walked around with the physician Luke. So medicine has never been removed from our focus, and neither has our faith. But I think each individual person has to determine where their faith is. So I have taken it personal that it is my responsibility to provide them the correct and accurate information. It is my responsibility to remind them what is available to them, but then it is their responsibility to gather the information and to actually apply it where it's applicable. One of the other things that I find is I have visitors who are coming to my church because they say that their church is closed down. So let me straighten that out. We are a small church. Our church is sanitized every week by spray, by fumigation. We require that there are masks. It is posted on my door. We have the availability that people do not necessarily have to sit next to each other. And we have an additional room where they can go and watch television. So from that point, I am going to stand with my faith, but my faith also teaches me that everybody may not be at my level, and I encourage them. I've taken my own shot. I've encouraged the people in my congregation to take a shot. I've offered to be a host so that shots can be given. I am not against it. I will stand for it, and I will present it so that everyone has an option based upon their knowledge. However, knowledge is one of those areas I believe that our people are deficient in because they're hearing it from grandmama who may not know all the facts, or they're hearing it from someone who did have a bad experience and not necessarily listening to what is available to us. So again, I take it personal that it is my responsibility to present the whole gospel, not one that is based upon me, but I need to present the facts and allow everyone to make their own decision. So at this point, that is where we stand at Goshen.
Pastor Greer, thank you so much for those opening remarks. We'll move now to Pastor Darrell Hooks of Allen Chapel AME Church. Pastor Hooks. Are you okay? We might have lost him. We'll move next to our next Pastor Braden Friday, Pastor Brad Friday with Living Waters Ministries. Pastor Friday.
Okay, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. And I'll be very practical in talking about this because and I deal with it from a perspective. The people that I talk to, there are some people who have apprehensions, and there are some people who say, well, they won't get it for whatever reason. And I have to be honest, myself, I had apprehensions, and I've gotten both my shots, and I've had mine. My apprehensions come from a different perspective. As a military vet, when I was on active duty, there were several shots and things that I took, and as a result of it, I had some of the residual that happened as a result of it. And one thing that I had to look at, that once you cross that threshold, you can't go back. But with this, I have to look at all of the different effects that it has on people, and I look at it from the immunizations that have taken place over the years, from the flu to you name it. And this is one of those same things, an immunization or from something, from a disease that happens. And it's very serious. And I look at some of the apprehensions. I've talked to people from both here and in other cities. One of the things that is prevailing is the Tuskegee within the Black community is the results of the Tuskegee experiment, and that a lot of people have apprehensions, and they say, well, you know, the government might be experimenting on with some medication or whatever. And those people for over years, and they're really afraid. These are people not right now in Tuskegee, Alabama, who are afraid because of what happened with the Tuskegee experiment. I've seen that some of the people who have talked much against getting the vaccine, the conspiracy theory, and a lot of those folks, some of those folks rather, are actually getting the virus, and they're changing their story as they get the virus. And my point is to make sure, as a pastor, to make responsible choices with regards to the health of the people in this community. I will be very practical when I talk about it. There's a lot of people that are talking, and they're coming with a lot of theological reasons why you shouldn't get it. And there's a lot of negative theological things that are being put out there that you shouldn't get it because this is a part of a conspiracy or the mark of the beast or things of that nature. There's a lot of some people politicize this thing and say, well, you shouldn't get it. This is the Democrats doing this and that. Bottom line, this is people getting sick, and this is people who are dying. I know someone right now in Montgomery, Alabama, who's struggling for their life. And my bottom line, it doesn't really matter what political thing it is or whatever. It's not there's one, I guess it's the lieutenant governor in Texas made the comment that this thing is spreading because of the Black people. And it is just ridiculous. And my thing is, as a pastor, my responsible response is, and like Jesus, he was very practical. When they came to him, they say, what about paying the taxes? Jesus said, well, who's on the coin? They say, well, Caesar is. He said, well, render unto Caesar that is Caesar's. And I'm not going to try to be spiritual about it. I'm going to follow CDC guidelines as a pastor. I will follow CDC guidelines. One thing that we do right now, of course, like my sister said, we clean the place, we fumigate the place, we offer masks, we offer gloves, and we also have an air purifier that we have available. And I just thank God for those who are handling this thing in a responsible way, because we definitely, this community, our people, and I say our people, I'm talking about Black and white people, they need us to make responsible decisions in this regard.
Pastor Wright, thank you. Thank you so much for your remarks. We'll move on with the speakers. Our goal is that we'll give speakers an opportunity to make their remarks. We've asked them to speak to the COVID-19 surge that's going on in our community and what they've seen and how they're dealing with it as pastors. We'll go next to Pastor Cornelius Woods of Family of God Baptist Church. Pastor Woods.
Good afternoon. Just glad to be able to share in this today with you all. And I'll just speak from the standpoint from my church and where we are. After the hurricane, we lost both sanctuaries, so we didn't have the opportunity to come back and spread out like most people are. But we are taking all precautions that need to be taken. We're leaving up to the people. You know, we have our worship at 8 o'clock. You can come, be a part of it. You must wear your mask now. We have three separate areas that you can worship in. We have the TV set up. You can just do it virtually. And I think it's important that the church continue to encourage people during this time. We can't make decisions for people. All we can do is give them the information. And so we're just giving them the information. We ask them to pray and be wise about this. Matter of fact, you know, we all probably have lost members from this. And so we know it's real. We know it's real. And all we can do is just trust God through this whole situation. If you take the shot, if you don't take the shot, you know, but we just have to give people the information, allow them to make the right decisions for themselves and not try to force it upon them. You know, God never forced salvation upon anybody, and we're free moral agents, and we just have to make those choices. And so, you know, at Family of God, we're doing all we can, you know, to spread the right information. So I think it's just about spreading good information.
Thank you, Pastor Wright. I'm sorry, Pastor Woods. We'll go next to Reverend Russell Wright, who is both a minister, a pastor, and a mortician in our community. Reverend Wright. You're on mute, Reverend Wright.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I apologize to you all for being a little late. I had some things I had to do today. This is what we're doing at our church at First Providence. We are this has been the third week, will be actually the fourth week that we have had in-person worship. It's at 10:30. Our Sunday school is virtual. It's 9 o'clock every Sunday morning, but it is virtual. And then we have the in-person worship at 10:30. We are following the guidelines that were set by the CDC, and that is everyone wears a mask, everyone social distance, we take temperatures before you go into the sanctuary. And basically we make sure that the people that come into the church understand that they're not, we're not saying they can't come because you have not been vaccinated, but we are encouraging people to get the vaccination. We are doing simultaneously the in-person worship as well as the virtual worship. Wednesday night Bible study is virtual. So basically we are offering one opportunity to do in-person worship on Sunday mornings at 10:30. Everything else at the church, all the meetings we hold with our official staff is actually done by teleconferencing. And then basically we are doing everything else virtual. So that's what we've done at the church since the beginning of this pandemic. Again, we just started doing in-person worship and we've had success with it. I am going to say this as I conclude, that I'm still seeing young people. As a matter of fact, two young ladies met with me. Both of them are probably in their 30s and early to late 30s. They are still believing the big lie that this is a mark of the beast to get the vaccine. And I don't know where they're getting that from, because that's not what I teach or preach. I've encouraged everybody to get the vaccine. One of the young ladies was almost offended when I said I'm a man of science and a man of faith. And but this is where we are, and it's a problem in our community to get our young African-American men and women and some of our older folk to get this vaccine. So basically that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Reverend Wright. We'll go next to Pastor Jesse Nelson of Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church. A reminder for those of you who have joined us after we got started, we are hearing opening presentations as each of the ministers is asked to just share their perspectives and what they are doing in their congregations, and any thoughts they have about keeping us safe during this surge in COVID-19. We'll go next to Pastor Jesse Nelson.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Miss, for the opportunity to come on and share with you all. And thank you and your team for what you all are doing in our community, not just in the Glenwood and Millville community, but the Bay County community, to keep us aware and informed of what COVID is doing in our community. As it relates to the most recent surge that we've seen in Bay County, it's something that I sort of anticipated as I look back at the chart from last year. I look back at once a month, our leadership team, at least once a month, we would meet during the, I guess now considering it to be an ongoing pandemic, we meet once a month to discuss the COVID numbers and how does that relate to our church family, and what does that look like for us as it relates to our services and our ministry events. And so last year when we looked at the chart, we saw a spike during the summer months going into August and back to school. And so this year, we anticipated there would be a summer spike as well as a surge before students went back to school. Part of that is because we are in a tourist area. And so we knew that individuals would come here to go to the beach and they would come here to have their last summer swim before they went back to school. And I think the surge that we're experiencing is sort of around that same scenario, that there were a lot of tourists and vacationers that came prior to school going back in, and hence we're experiencing this surge. As it relates to how are we handling this pandemic, this latest surge within our congregation, we're continuing to do what we've done since we sort of gathered back together. In the beginning, we prayed about things. We did look at CDC guidelines. It was impossible for us to sort of gather and follow CDC guidelines, especially when guidelines were saying, 10 or less people. That was sort of impossible for us to gather as a congregation with that. So after about a month of doing it online with pre-recorded services, we began having outdoor services beginning Mother's Day of 2020. And we've been consistent in continuing to have those outdoor services, rain, cold, heat. We continue to have those outdoor services. And so although we're outdoors, I think we've only had to count, so maybe 3 outdoor services, but we even have it set up now to where even if I'm not able to be outdoors, or if our music team is not able to be outdoors, you can still sit outside and still hear the services from inside, where myself and the team will go inside and record the services. And so we still provide those on Facebook, YouTube, as well as have that live interaction and engagement for those who come on the campus. We have a nightly prayer call so that we're able to continue to encourage each other on a regular basis. So every night from 6 to 6:30, we have a teleconference where we pray for one another, and then we're also praying for our community and our first responders, our nurses, our doctors, others that are facing and battling this COVID surge and this pandemic. One of the things that I often remind my congregation of is don't walk into a snake pit and not expect to get bit. That's one of the things I try to share with them sort of on a personal level. I may not preach it from the pulpit, but that's one of the things when COVID first started, I would say to them is that whether we believe in COVID or not, whatever your level of faith is, whatever precautions you take, if you go into a snake pit and there are snakes in there, you can anticipate that you might get bit by the snakes. And so I just encourage all of our congregation to try to be as safe as possible. And all of us have our different measures of what we consider safety to be. And so wear your mask, social distance or physical distance, depending on what you want to classify that as it relates to getting the shots. Whenever shots were first brought out for our older members, we worked along with Mr. Bostic and his team to make sure that we could get as many people in our community registered as possible to get their first round of vaccinations. We even were able to partner with Sacred Ascension or Ascension Sacred Heart, as well as Mr. Bostic and some other community organizations to host a vaccine clinic at Macedonia. one of the challenges is that people didn't want to get vaccinations. So we literally had to go out, as the Bible says, to the hedges and highways and byways to invite people to come in. And so although the hospital was there with shots available for individuals, we had to literally go out and beg people in the streets to come in and get their vaccinations. We would have people that would pull up in the parking lot and they would ask, is this the Johnson & Johnson? Because they were looking for one shot. I said, no, this is not the Johnson & Johnson. This is the Pfizer. However, you're already here. And I can't guarantee you that you will be eligible, or I can't tell you when the Johnson & Johnson will be available. So why wait to get the Johnson & Johnson when you have an opportunity to get a shot now? And so we had a lot of people that refused to get shots just because it wasn't the particular vaccination that they wanted. And as Pastor Friday mentioned earlier about the apprehensions of individuals, it did take a lot of education and information in order to make people aware of what the shot could do and what it wouldn't do, and just being preventive. So I think the more that we can try to educate individuals, and also just realizing that in essence, this is a huge experiment. And I'm not saying experiment in a negative sense like the Tuskegee experiment, but it's a huge experiment in the sense of the doctors don't know what to expect. I think they're doing the best they can. And we just have to make sure that we help alleviate the worry and stress of those individuals that we're leading in our church and in our community, to say, hey, we are literally walking by faith. When we're talking about a faith walk and, faith over fear, faith or fear, this is literally a faith walk. Whenever I got my COVID vaccination, I did ask the lady, I said, hey, is this a one-time shot? Is this an annual shot? How often do I have to get this? And the young lady that was giving me the shot said she didn't know. And so she asked her supervisor, and her supervisor said she had to go ask the pharmacist who was overseeing the clinic. And he did say, I think this is going to be an annual shot that you have to get at least following up with a booster. So just saying that it is a faith walk, because what we're expecting everybody to know, they don't know. And I believe if we were to relate this to how we operate in our churches, that in our churches, in our ministries, we walk by faith and not by sight. And I think at this moment, we're trying to see too much and trying to understand too much instead of, hey, let's trust God and walk by faith. Finally, one of the things that really helped me look beyond the rhetoric that we're seeing on both sides here in America is that I'm affiliated with some organizations, universities in South Africa, and realizing that the professors and the scientists in South Africa were also working on various antidotes and vaccines for the Pfizer and for the Moderna, as well as for the Johnson & Johnson. Let me know that this is not a political agenda. This is not something that's being pushed by Democrats or Republicans, that this is a worldwide pandemic that everybody's trying to solve. And so that gave me more comfort in knowing that this is something that is a world problem, but we are also working on a world solution.
Pastor Nelson, thank you for those remarks and for giving us a broader perspective. We also have joining us Pastor James Russ, Greater Friendship. If you would like to share your perspectives and thoughts, we'll go to you, and then to Pastor Darrell Kelly. And to round out our presentations will be Dr. Matt, and then we'll move to a lively discussion. Pastor Russ.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Being here is a blessing, a privilege, and an honor to be before you today. We at Greater Friendship are indeed doing all of the CDC requirements. We are continuing to do our virtual and in-person services. But I guess the thing that I would like to just say is how I am amazed that this pandemic, especially in this country, has turned so political, and that people don't believe that it is actually real. Well, if we would encourage our people just to get out of the echo chamber that only feeds you what you already believe, then I think it is quite evident that there is something that is happening in this world. I mean, there are people in India that are literally having cremations of bodies in parking lots. This is not an American only thing. This is a worldwide thing. unfortunately, we find here, from my perspective, that we're looking for scapegoats. We're looking for people to blame. The guy who was on the Fox News from Lieutenant Governor, he was saying it was a black problem. You look at the governor from Florida, he says it's an immigration on the border problem. However, what it is actually a virus, just like any other virus that is out there, that is extremely contagious and extremely dangerous. I have lost a brother in arms that I deployed with when I was in the military. He was 57 years old. He died last week. I've lost a first cousin who was 55. He did not have the shot. I have relatives right now that are apprehensive. Well, they were apprehensive about it, and they are currently hospitalized because of COVID-19. I have a cousin that has recovered from COVID. However, they have long-term issues such as COPD congestive heart failure, all because of this particular virus. So from my perspective of not putting my thoughts on anyone else, this is less about faith and more about being pragmatic. When the polio was around, people were glad that there was a vaccine to eradicate that because it was such a deadly or debilitating disease. And one of the issues that we're also having to deal with, not necessarily in my congregation, because I believe that most of us we are vaccinated. We are vaccinated. Of course, we took all those precautions, but an unvaccinated person runs the risk of taking this disease back home and infecting others. That is unfortunate. And how many times have we seen anti-vaxxers, staunch anti-vaxxers, that after they have contracted this virus, now they tell everyone they need to get the vaccine because you don't want to go through this. It is an absolute horrible way to die. We all will die, but this particular one is an absolute horrible way to die. We need, I think, from my perspective, we talk about it each and every Sunday, about the importance of it and the importance of belief and thanking God that there is a vaccine, that God has given the medical professionals the wherewithal to develop a vaccine that will help us get through. The same way we take high blood pressure medicine. It doesn't take faith to take high blood pressure medicine. We take it those who have it, they take it. Myself, last year, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I went through a series of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is nothing but poison, but it was a necessary poison to get me to a place where I can still recover and be healthy. So faith is important. It is. Oh, absolutely. That goes without question. And I guess I'm hesitant to say, but I will, that this is more about being pragmatic than testing my faith. So I'm going to continue to encourage people that I see. I'm going to continue to protect myself and my family. I'm going to continue to wear my mask. I'm going to continue to limit my social interactions so that we can get this thing under control. Because if not, then I think I can foresee where the political rhetoric will die down, and this thing starts to mutate in something even worse than it already is. So that's what I have to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pastor Russ, for joining us, for sharing your perspectives. We'll go next to Pastor Darrell Kelly, Free Spirit Church. Pastor Kelly.
All right. Yes. Thank you for the invitation to be here and part of this forum and discussion. As far as Free Spirit Community Church goes, right now, we're not currently doing in-person service, mainly because we're still in construction for our facility, coming back from the hurricane. So for a season, we were sharing with another ministry, their sanctuary. They were gracious enough to make it available to us. So after the hurricane, we did have a place to meet on Sunday afternoons. But since the pandemic has come into play, of course, they decided to shut down their facility when it first was announced. So that put us going strictly virtual for our services. But then when they later decided to resume their services, I still chose for us not to go back and use their facility, just to reduce the risk of having two congregations using the same building. And of course, at that time, all of the sanitation and cleaning protocols were not necessarily in place. So we didn't want to necessarily risk it and wing it like that. So we've been meeting virtually since that time. But yes, I'm like many of you, encouraging our members to do research and make decision that is best for their lifestyle and for their situation. I know my dad, is in a unique situation. He's still with us, but with all of the health issues and the things that are going on in his life, he's in that in between, deciding whether or not even the medicine or the vaccine will put him at risk because of things he's dealing with, versus not taking it at all. And so he's seeing it as a risk on both sides, because he doesn't know how his body will react to it, as well as knowing that if he did get it, his system is too weak to fight or anything. So I'm here as a student. I'm here listening to you all. I'm here to get educated as well, so that when we do resume our services, because it shouldn't be too much longer for our construction, but when we do, I want to have the knowledge and some things in place for a reentry type protocol, so we can do things effectively in our in-person services. But I think virtual will also be a part of the permanent plan as well moving forward as an option. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Kelly, for joining us and participating today. Pastor Darrell Hooks with Allen Chapel AME Church, and then we'll get a perspective of what's happening in the medical world and from the hospital from Dr. Matt. So we'll go next to Pastor Hooks. We've lost him again. So we'll go now to Dr. Matt. Dr. Albert is a general practitioner here at the Callaway Clinic. Dr. Matt.
Yeah, I've been in practice of medicine, family medicine, for approximately 37 years. And I do apologize for my tardiness, but oddly enough, I was attending a memorial service of a patient and friend of mine who passed away from COVID. That individual, unfortunately, initially thought it was a hoax, subsequently thought the virus was not that big of a deal. And I saw him last in the office. Last words to me, although he's already definitely ill and delayed coming in about 2 weeks, was whether I can get the vaccine. And I pretty much informed him it was just too late, and he passed away from COVID pneumonia 6 days later. This virus, as we well know, is a very, very deadly virus. To kind of throw some things out there, we have the Columbia variant that's up there now. Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami has documented that we're seeing about 10% of COVID cases in that area related to the Columbia variant. There's also other spotty areas throughout the country that are seeing it, but I will have to remind folks that the Delta variant back in June was only at 10%. And by July, it was greater than 10%. So here again, these viruses spread very rapidly. There was talk that, well, let me go back. The average age now of folks passing away and dying from COVID is 44. When this first started, the average age was a lot higher. Right now, the department, as of July 17th, Department of Health, Florida Department of Health, no longer reports age-related deaths. So you really have to kind of dig deep to find out if any of our young folks are dying from this virus. I went ahead and pulled up just sporadically some news clippings, and what we're looking at now, just from those news clippings, we have a 17-year-old female from Columbia County. It passed away. That's Lake City area, passed away from COVID suddenly. There's a 15-year-old from Broward County in Florida who is in a critical condition. She was not vaccinated. The other was vaccinated. She's on a ventilator. She's in a induced coma, not expected to survive. The mom was vaccinated, had mild disease. Unfortunately, the daughter was not. Jacksonville, Florida, there's a 16-year-old Wilson Children's Hospital who had passed away from COVID. There's also a Orange County, an 18-year-old had health issues. This individual had health issues, also passed away from COVID. And then there was a 17-year-old actually went to a church gathering. They weren't masked. There was no social distancing. She had some health issues. She was affected and oddly enough, her parents decided to give her hydrochloroquine, which we know is not something you should do. And she is subsequently away. That's in the Fort Myers area. And that was just, there were others, but that was just kind of a synopsis. And that occurred all within the last 2 weeks. There's been some talk about the vaccine, and I've read the papers and done the research and all that. The vaccines are extremely safe. We're looking at, there have been some side effects. Probably the big one is Johnson, where they had 38 females under the age of 50. Actually, 3 were above the age of 50, the rest were below the age of 50. 38 of them developed blood clots. 3 to 5, I believe, passed away. That's after 9 million shots were given. Presently, to include 1 shots and 2 shots, we're looking at about 200 million individuals have received either one of the 3 vaccines. There's been a lot of concern and a lot of misconception about the vaccines and concerns about the fact that they were formulated as quickly as they were. I'm here to tell you that these vaccines were, although they reached production within 66 days, the process actually was ongoing for approximately 20 years. They actually put together the first template when they had the first SARS virus in 2002. We had a second SARS virus, which was the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome virus. They modified the template at that time, and they were just waiting for the next SARS virus. Do the math, we're looking at a SARS virus for every 8 to 10 years. So and behold, 8 years down the road, we have COVID-19. That template was put in place. Coincidental with that, we had a brilliant physician, probably get the Nobel Prize in medicine. She has a Polish last name. I call her Dr. K, but in essence, she came up with a brilliant idea that if I can reproduce the genetic material of a cancer cell, have that produce a protein, the body itself can fight the cancer itself. And that technology actually is used in the DNA technology to create the vaccine we have today. Now, what we're looking at, the differences between the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine are pretty much similar. They use messenger, they reproduce and attest to messenger RNA. That's single-stranded messenger RNA, but it is genetic material that's duplicated in the test tube of the virus itself. And the big difference is they attach that to a fat particle. And when you get the injection, the fat particle disappears. They modified the messenger RNA. Messenger RNA is something that everyone produces, but it dissipates within minutes. They've modified to where it sticks around about 2 weeks. Here again, to help us produce the protein, produce the antibodies against the protein against COVID. Oh, Cecile, how you doing? Oh, she's back off again. That's both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is slightly different. It has a double-stranded DNA. Here again, reproduced in the test tubes. You're not getting any viral particles whatsoever. And it is attached to a neutralized virus, respiratory virus. It's a virus that causes a common cold, adenovirus. And in essence, similar process. You know, it generates the protein and regenerate antibodies against that protein. That's how we're protected. Here again, thus, when we're looking at the CDC has a system where they monitor adverse reactions to vaccines, meaning, or deaths, I should say, meaning that if you receive the vaccine and cross Highway 98, get hit by a car, you're listed. And most recent data that I researched looked at there's about 4,800 deaths related to folks who've gotten vaccines who have died for whatever reason. Out of that 4,800, maybe slightly higher now, out of that 4,800, the only coincidental causal relationship that they've seen is with the Johnson & Johnson, and that's the 3 to 5 deaths that resulted from pulmonary embolisms in those individuals. Rest, and what they do is they pull the medical records, they research it, and so on, and they just really have not found any relationship between their deaths and the vaccine. Put everything in its proper perspective. Monthly, we have about 3,870 deaths just from motor vehicle accidents. Since the vaccine has been out there, we've had 4,800 directly, indirectly related to the vaccine, but there hasn't been any call and saying that the vaccine is we're looking at CDC recommendations presently. Even if you're vaccinated, we're looking at indoor activities must be masked. Those who are vaccinated and those who definitely aren't vaccinated. Some of the studies coming out now shows that the folks that are probably the great spreaders, oddly enough, are the infants and toddlers. They actually can spread the virus more so than teenagers. We're also looking at that those folks who are actually vaccinated, some of the studies are showing us those individuals may very well be in a position to spread the virus. So that's the reason why the CDC came out with a recommendation that if you're in-house, indoors activities, you should mask up. Something else I wanted to say about.
Well, Dr. Mack, we'll come back to you. I've gotten word that Pastor Hooks was called away, and he's asked Tony Bostic to share what they're doing at Allen Chapel. So we'll go there to Tony for what's happening at Allen Chapel AME, and then I'll have the graph of where we are with positivity cases week over week for Bay County as compared to Florida. So Tony.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting this effort. Thank you for being there as the tip of the spear in our community. At Allen Chapel, what we decided to do under the auspices of the AME Church was they allowed us to go back into church. But with this new spike in COVID, they decided to shut down. But what we were doing while we were there was, share my screen here just a second with you. We put in a seating chart. The pews are typically 21 feet long. So if you put 2 people on each end, 1 on each end, skip a pew, put the 1 in the middle on that pew, you can maintain 6-foot separation that way for the social distancing. We also required temperature checks coming in. We required masks coming in. We had hand sanitizer available at the door. We instituted a no hugging, no touching policy. We also did electrostatic sanitization in the off time when church was not going on. So we did all of those things to ensure our safety. But since our association has gone back to no in-person, we're back to Zoom, broadcast over to Facebook. At a later time, when Ms. Lucas allows, I'll give you some stats just from the local area here and give you something to think about with your congregation as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tony, for that report. just want to share with you the latest week-over-week positivity cases. You can see here that on June 3rd, we were very, very low. I mean, the percent of people who tested that were positive, well below 5%, just above 0%. Week over week, because that's how the state is releasing the data now, no longer releasing data daily reports. We see that we began to see a climb in June of the week of June 24th. So a little dip, but it continued to rise. And so the point here where it has come down is we're still seeing 200 cases, an average of 200 cases daily when we look at our weekly reports. Here we had topped 1,600 positive cases the week of July 30th. So it's coming down. School has started, and as has been noted, that we're expecting the numbers to increase. Each week, twice a week, Bay District Schools produces a report, and our latest report shows that there are 802 people quarantined, staff, students, faculty, with Bay District Schools who are quarantined currently according to CDC guidelines. And that's up from 52 the first week of school. The second week of school, we see 802 people quarantined. That's not that not all of those people have tested positive, but because they have exposed others, then that's where the quarantine occurs. So we're at a point where we will talk about what's been said. We have viewers who are watching via Facebook and YouTube. Tony, I'll go back to you for the updates you want to give, and then we'll open the floor for discussion.
Okay, thank you. These are pastors and everyone watching. These are just some numbers out of the local neighborhood. 2 weeks ago, they had 131 patients over at Ascension Sacred Heart. 94% of those people were unvaccinated. Last week, they had 153 patients at Ascension Sacred Heart. That's not including over at Gulf Coast, but that's just at Ascension Sacred Heart. 95% of those people were unvaccinated. The average age, the median age for infectious people in the hospital now with COVID in Bay County is 42 years old, as you heard Dr. Mapp say before. And again, now you can check the numbers. You can ask Dr. Mapp, you can ask Dr. Rafi, different ones in the community. 60% of the people that go on ventilators do not come off alive. 60%. In the last 17 days, just in the local African-American populace here in Panama City, we've had 25 deaths in 17 days. That does not include the Caucasian brothers and sisters out there that I don't know about. That doesn't include the African-American brothers and sisters in the outlying communities that I don't know about. Like both hospitals right now, they have suspended all elective surgeries. They're right now sending people out of the county back to their state of residence via ambulance. Every time that they send that ambulance out of county, that's a 2-day trip. So now if you have a heart attack or a stroke, you're less likely on any given day, 2 days of the week, not to have ambulance coverage. It's so bad now, and Dr. Mapp can speak to this as well, that they're actually treating people, the patients in the ambulance because they don't have room for them inside the hospital. It's getting worse. If you still having in-person services in your facility, your church, your sanctuary, please go and spend the extra money and get HEPA filters. HEPA filters will help your air conditioning system trap some of the virus, help it trap some of the other impurities in the air, and you don't spread it. Make sure your people are wearing masks. Make sure you have a seating plan, 6 feet. 6 feet. If your current facility can hold 200 people, if you do 6 foot separation, that means the most people that you can get in there safely under CDC guidelines is 25. Do the math and you'll find out that it's there. Hand sanitizer, no hugging or no touching. When you leave out of there in the after service, go and invest in some UVC sterilization lights. UVC is between 100 and 400 nanometers. That's what the UVC is down near the 100 to 280 nanometer size. That's what the hospitals use to kill bacteria in operating rooms. I have them in my house. I have them in my car. Me and my wife as well. UVC sanitizers over at Lee Coalition's office. Ms. Lucas has them there. So go and invest in that. Someone mentioned earlier about the need for a booster shot. The CDC's new guidelines is that roughly if you've been vaccinated, roughly eight months after you've been vaccinated, you're going to need to get a booster shot. Those are coming online now. Dr. Matt talked about the new Columbia variant. That surfaced right here in Florida for the first time in the US 2.5 weeks ago, down in Miami-Dade County. And it's spreading just like the Delta variant did. It's spreading like wildfire. The old, we'll call it the old COVID-19, was centered primarily in the nasal passage. That's the reason you could go get the swab. It felt like they were sticking your brain, but that's where it was lodged so they could test it. The new Delta and the Columbia variant are lodged in the lungs. There are currently only one test available, one machine out there that can take that test. And that machine costs about $110,000, and they do not have one in Bay County. So now by the time you get infected, you get sick, you go to the hospital, the way they can do it, because now your sputum is coming up, your nasal passages are draining, it's coming up out of your lungs, then they swab you and then they can tell that you've got COVID. But by that time, usually it's on the far side of being too late because it's been harbored in your lungs for so long that it has done the damage. Do what you can do. Spread the word. I made a post on Facebook last week. It said, asking the pastors to speak to your people now before you have to speak over them later. This is not a joke. Ms. Lucas has the data. She can flash it up, or she can get it to you, or you can visit the RAC website. African Americans are the lowest number of people to be vaccinated in the state of Florida and in Bay County. The Hispanic population has now surpassed us in the local community as well as the state level and across the country. So we need to encourage our people to get tested, to get vaccinated. As you guys well know, Dr. Wright, Dr. Nelson, many of you, Dr. Russ there, I contacted you guys back at the first of the year when we were doing these COVID clinics. Well, we're starting to ramp back up, and starting every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, we're doing testing. We're going to be doing it at 14th Court and MLK, right there by the Martin Luther King Rec Center. We're doing it from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We're doing that so that people that work during the day will have the opportunity to come and get tested. Just as soon as we can get this ramped up, we're looking for more nurses. We're looking for more respiratory therapists right now. Then we're going to take it out and do vaccinations. We're trying to get the state of Florida back in here. They've got this new Regeneron treatment down at the fairgrounds. Caution to that is that you must be pretty much qualified to do that. That's not going to be an open season. You coughing and you run down there and get that treatment. That's not going to happen. That's not the way that works. So in order to give our people a better chance, give our community a better chance, not only our African-American community, but also our community in Bay County and our community as a state of Florida, to give us a better chance of survival. One of the things that you pastors know really well, that the first, people talk about different things, and I've heard someone talk about some of the things they're hearing. Well, the first recorded quarantine was in the book of Exodus, the 7th chapter, when the plagues of Egypt started. And just like then, such as now, God told them to go inside. The CDC has said go inside. The CDC has said social distance. The CDC has said wear your mask. God even went so far as to tell them to put the blood over the doorpost. It's the same thing. The first recorded, there's a lot of religious angst about this. Assure your people that of the 12 original disciples that Jesus chose, he chose a physician. Why? Because he wanted it to be able to be understood that from a human standpoint, that we still need doctors as well as we need faith. The Bible said that faith without works is dead. So if we can have all the faith in the world, but if we're not getting vaccinated, we're not getting tested, and we're not social distancing, and you get sick and die, then It's like the story of the man that drowned and God had sent a helicopter, a boat, and somebody to tell him to leave, and he drowned anyway. So let's not be hard-headed, stiff-necked people. Let's encourage our people. And I know you pastors do. I know you guys do. I've talked to you, probably each one of you at a different level at a different time. And I know you guys have a heart for your people. So continue to encourage them to stay safe and be safe. And again, if you have any questions, you need to know anything additional, call myself, call Ms. Lucas. We're out here in the community every day. We're meeting with people from the state, the federal government, from CDC, Health and Human Services, Assistant Secretary of Health. We're going to meetings. If I'm not in a meeting, Ms. Lucas is, and 9 times out of 10, if I'm in a meeting, Ms. Lucas already in another meeting. So we go to these meetings, we get the information. We don't mind sharing it. And
Look, Tony, I'm gonna stop you before you take off, because you already took a text just a moment ago. So thank you all. It's now open discussion. We do have some questions in the chat, and no doubt your heart has been pricked, your mind has been churning, and we'll go now to open floor discussion.
Yeah, I'm reading the chat here, and something mentioned by Investimir for COVID. Thing is, the Investimir is actually anti-parasitic medicines used to treat parasites in animals, particularly horses. They're looking at, and they've seen some quote unquote promise, but as of today, it's not approved for use in Now, unfortunately, I have some of my colleagues who are using it, and that may be problematic because here again, hydrochloroquine was something that had promise, and found out that hydrochloroquine was killing more folks than it was curing COVID-19. And as I just mentioned, the teenager who died from COVID-19 actually was being treated with hydrochloroquine. So right now, it's probably a holding pattern on Investimir at this point in time. And it is a medicine that's used to treat parasite in animals, horses, and it's still looking.
So Dr. Matt, we do have a question in the chat about the monoclonal antibody treatment. Is this something we should take if we have COVID or exposed to someone?
The thing is now, unfortunately, as Bostic had mentioned, there's a whole bunch of hoops they have to go through as far as getting that treatment. You're looking at one, you have to have conditions in order to get it. 2, you have to get it very early on in treatment, and it has been shown to be effective in those individuals who are treated. But if you just have a cough or runny nose, something like that, and you have no other medical comorbidities, it's quite possible for you to get it. We're looking at, I think they had a couple months ago, they were starting treatment up in Alabama. And that individual did well, but she had comorbidity factors that qualified her for that particular treatment.
So we also have a request in the chat. Tony, if you'll put the name of the lights and the filters, those things that you suggested that people get, if you'll put that in the chat. All right, thumbs up. Roger that.
Also, Janice, early on, Cecile asked a question about how the pastors are sharing or encouraging their congregation to get the vaccine. And I know several of the pastors mentioned how they were doing that. But I think of the other question of what are the tools or what do they need to help them get the word out and to encourage people to encourage their members to get the vaccine.
So that's a question for pastors. How can we be of assistance or help to you in getting the word out about the vaccine?
I have a statement that I would like to make because I'm on one spectrum of ministry and on another spectrum, but because of the nature of my business, the problem that we are facing at this juncture, getting our people to take this shot is not just because of politics, it's because of a spiritualization of everything that happens. I think we spiritualize everything, and this may offend some people for a preacher of 45 years saying this. And when I said earlier that I tell people I'm a man of science and a man of faith, a young lady immediately told me Sunday, that just offends me. Well, I am trained in a profession that requires a knowledge of science. Medical doctor, Dr. Matt, but I am an undertaker, a mortician. The problem is our people are just looking for some way not to take this shot. Just like, for instance, with funeral services. I buried a mother, a father, sisters, brothers, close friends. I understand grief. I understand death. I face death, as I said, personally. So I'm not desensitized to other people who are dealing with giving a final rite of disposition, celebration of life that you might want to call it. But to get into a church and fill it up and pack it out because someone says, I want to celebrate my loved one's life. You can celebrate that life today, and numbers of people can be dead from COVID tomorrow or in a few days. And it's difficult for pastors who are committed to holistic ministry, like these men that have been speaking here today. Every one of them I've seen in this room, I know what kind of minister they are, what kind of pastor they are. They're trained men. They are committed to their ministry, to their people, and they do an outstanding job where they are. But the problem they're facing, I face, and the question that was asked, what do we do more to get our people convinced to get the shot? I tell people all the time, I make sure my families that I serve at my mortuary, my wife and I, who are funeral directors and embalmers, and she's a registered nurse, we make sure that that family will allow us, if the person died from COVID, not to call the name, but to at least be able to share with people this number of deaths that we've had in the last 5 days. 5 days, people, let's say 7 days, a whole week. Every one of those have been COVID deaths in Bay County. That's what Tony Bostic was just saying. This thing is real. So I ask families to let me give the information without giving the name of their loved one and exposing that, to tell people, if you think you don't need a vaccine, if you don't think that people are dying from COVID, let me get this information out in the community to pastors and churches. Let me tell you, this thing is real. Every case I had in the last 7 days, again, let me repeat and I'll shut up, have been a COVID death, period. So if that doesn't motivate people to want to protect themselves and their families and their community, I don't know what we can do. Take it from the mortician. People, they're dying from COVID in Bay County. No matter what the governor does not want said, or the mayor of any municipality, or city or county commission, these people are dying from COVID, period. And it's been an alarming amount, again, in this wave that we're in right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Wright. Mr. Shack, you have your hand raised.
Yes, this is for Tony and you, Janice. Is it logistically possible to set up the churches on a rotation? Maybe every Sunday we go to a different church and set up a vaccination site at churches on a rotating basis. Is that logistically possible?
No, sir.
Perhaps, well, my thought was perhaps it is if we plan it. And we do have commitments from the health department to help us get the vaccines into the community. However, the logistics of where we place them will have to be taken into consideration. And what we've been putting forth is that we want to be able to offer some sites that are not going to be suitable for 100, 200 people, y'all come, but can accommodate smaller numbers on a regular basis. So the short answer is, I guess, maybe, depending on which locations we would choose. Tony?
Yeah, the reason I say no, because we've got two different problems here. Number one, we've got the state problem. If we're using a state sanctioned site, then they have to come in, they have to do a health and sanitization survey, they have to do an entry-exit survey, they have to do all of these things. If we're using under the auspices of the local health department, then the answer, as Ms. Lucas just said, is maybe. But right now, we're working through a third party, Frost Medical out of Okaloosa County. They can't even go into facilities like that. So we're limited to being outside under a tent or in a trailer. So some of this is really difficult, but we're doing all that we can to bring this to our neighborhood. As soon as we're able to negotiate some of the obstacles along the path, we will get it to every church here, because I think every pastor represented here today know that I will text them, I will email, I'll do whatever I need. And you guys have really been good about supporting the efforts in the community. And so as we get clearance to do it at more sites and more facilities, we would definitely bring it to you.
Oh, just one other question.
Go ahead, Mr. Shack.
Okay, does PanCare do testing and vaccination, or just testing?
They do both. The problem with PanCare has been access in the neighborhood. Some people measure this. One of the things I would ask you guys to understand that a lot of these organizations measure success in terms of number. Whereas myself and Janice look at it is success is if we prevented one additional infection or one additional death. Some of these other organizations need numbers. They need great numbers in order to show success. We don't. We just need to know that we were able to help somebody, whether it's one person or 10 people or 100 people. So PanCare is getting a little different, a little better, but we're still working with them.
Well, the only reason I was saying, and I'll be finished, is that if you had PanCare to go to each church that set up, they have their own self-contained facility on wheels that is certified by the state, I think. It should be. So rather than having them come into the churches, you can have a mobile system that goes from church to church. That's if they would agree.
So I guess, Tony, if you are on the call and you'd like to have your church considered as a site, please put that in the chat. And so we'll at least know what sites we can begin to put forward through the process. Reverend Wright, I want to go back to something that you said about the men of the cloth who are on the call today. We do have a female pastor with us who practices holistic ministry, who's with us, Minister Greer. So just want to make sure we acknowledge that as well. And Pastor Russ, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lucas, the question I think was what more can be done, or what suggestions that pastors have that we can get more people vaccinated. And to be honest, I don't know what more can be done. My mind goes, because the misinformation is so prevalent that people will gravitate to that. As I said previously, they go to sites that are echo chambers that only build up what they already believe. They have to understand that masks don't prevent the virus, they mitigate the virus. The vaccine, as we see, we have these breakthroughs, not necessarily preventing the virus, but it mitigates the effects of the virus so that you won't die. And unfortunately, it looks like until death comes to someone's home, and they watch a loved one suffer through this dreaded disease, then they will not go and get the virus. I'm reminded, I'll say this last thing, I'm reminded of the story in the Bible of Lazarus, the poor beggar that was sitting by the wayside outside, and the rich man comes by and well, Lazarus dies. You know the story, and he's like, "Hey, can I go back and tell my brothers that they don't want to come here?" Well, he said, "Listen, you have the people, you have the prophets, you have everyone telling them even right now. They're not listening to them. We're in the pulpits, we're on social media, we're giving valid information, but people are still, for whatever reason, saying that no, I'm not going to do it. But until they start to go and visit, they have a visitation with Dr. Wright at the Russ Wright mortuary. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know what else more that we can do from a pastor standpoint. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
May I say
we
one?
got a couple of hands raised here. We'll go to Pastor Nelson, and then
Okay.
Albert Matt. Then we'll come back to you, Reverend Wright.
All right.
Thank you. As it relates to the tools, we are receiving a lot of information as pastors. I think most of us are probably signed up for various emails, and so we probably receive 10 different emails a day as it relates to COVID-19 from various sources. So I think, if we were able to have just a one-stop shop, and I know Lead Coalition and others, do provide that information, but just sort of a one-stop shop where we can just go and look at information. Because whenever we do meet with our congregation, or when we're trying to talk with someone about COVID-19, then we're having to look at, okay, what does the CDC say? What does the State Department say? Now we're having to look at, what does the school system say? What does the governor say? What does the local municipality say? What do the local businesses say? And so I think there is, in some ways, we're overwhelmed with so much information that it is hard for us to sort of try to feed through all of that. But if we could sort of carve out what are the essential things that individuals need to know as it relates to COVID-19, I think one of the things that we don't oftentimes share with people, but I've shared with my congregation as a tool as it relates to COVID-19, is that the number of cases that we see are actually less than what the number of cases are. And I'm not talking about manipulation by the local government. I'm referring to the fact that we're only able to identify the cases in which people get tested. So how many people have COVID-19 that have not been tested? And so those are some of the things that I think if we could sort of hone in on what those tools are. We hear about hospitalizations, but we don't have that I don't know what the source is for that actual information. I had a lady from Gulf Coast actually show me how I can go in and look at how many people are in the hospital. And so I think as pastors, we are all gifted with the art of persuasion. And so if we're able to be given the tools that are necessary for us to be able to say, hey, here's the one-stop shop that we can all have access to, and not have to sit down and try to pull together the information and trying to share it with others. And I think as Pastor Russ and Pastor Wright have alluded to, sadly, the most effective tool that I've seen recently has been death. Sadly, because I know people who have refused to get the vaccination. However, upon the death of someone of significance in the community, upon the death of someone that is close to them in familiar relationship, then that is the determining factor that convinces them to go and get the vaccine. So in some ways, to Ms. Schoon's question, I think the most effective tool right now is the tool that is beyond our control, and that is the repercussions of COVID-19. Basically, the worst thing that could happen from someone with COVID-19 is death. And so that's what I've been seeing as the most, sadly, as the most effective tool to encourage people to get the vaccinations has been death. However, what I've also seen combat that is that people are saying that, okay, well, I have faith and not fear. And so I've seen some people that have combated the fact that COVID-19 can result in death and still have refused to get the vaccine or take any kind of precautionary measures to spreading the virus, whether it's wearing masks or social distancing, because they're saying, hey, we have faith over fear. And so that has been something that has been combative in the religious community as well. And as Pastor was alluding to, sometimes how do we connect to the people that are not connected to the church? because that's been a challenge as well for pastors, is how do we get this information out to individuals that are not connected to the church. So what I've tried to do is encourage some of my church members to talk to their family members who are not connected to the church about the COVID vaccine and about COVID testing as well.
All right, thank you, Pastor. We put in the chat box the link to this website, and this is where the Resilient American Communities Bay County posts our information. We've got a week-over-week graph that we keep here. What you see in the center here is comes from Bay District Schools. They give a twice-a-week COVID-19 update. And this one came out on the 13th. There is a more recent one that's out now. And it shows us, and when you click on the link, as I just did, it will take you to the website. And so on August 20th, there were overall 114 new cases, 64 students, 10 staff in Bay District Schools. A total quarantine of students and staff, 312 total. They highlight this number in Wright to stick out, but what this isn't showing you is the trend. And the trend is that these numbers are going up. There are 20 schools that are involved with active cases and people exposed. And then currently quarantined per CDC guidelines, 802 people associated with the schools. And to get to that information, you go to the link that we put in the chat. We also each week have a weekly update. You can click on this link and it'll show you the numbers. And so we give this report at 3 o'clock on Mondays, and it will be updated with our latest numbers for 3 o'clock on Monday. So this is one place, and we try to do just that. In this report, you have the vaccination data for the state and for the county. So as of this date, and it will be updated by Monday, we have in Bay County, 45% at least one dose vaccinated, 35.5% fully vaccinated, and we have those numbers by age. In June, the governor decreed, and the data that was given in terms of more specificity was by race was stopped. We have it at the state level. So you see here, 29.98%, roughly 30% of the Black population of Florida is vaccinated. So they're keeping the data. It is just not reported as readily as it used to be. So in answer to your question, this is one place that you can click on and go, and it's updated every Monday by 3 o'clock. We have a couple of hands that are raised, so we'll go. Dr. Mapp, you were waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, kind of reemphasize and reiterate what the Reverend Russ and also Reverend Nelson said. Right now, I mean, we're reaching a population of individuals that's so resistant to getting the vaccine. I am just left a memorial for a patient of mine passed away from COVID. I was the only one in that memorial with a mask, give you an idea of the situation we're facing. And it seemingly, to paraphrase Reverend Nelson, that death seems to be the great equalizer. That when someone dies or someone gets critically ill in their family, then they move forward getting vaccinated. So I have a patient of mine, we've known each other since 1985. He had a serious illness that I begged him to get treated, and he ignored me, and finally he did, and my recommendation saved his life. He pulls up an obscure article by somebody who basically says vaccines are terrible. And although I pull up 100 articles saying that what this guy is saying is totally false, that's what he wants to believe. People are pulling up information to support what they want to believe until something terrible happens to them or something they love. That's the honest truth of the matter is that's where we are right now. I mean, it's sad to say, but that's pretty much where we are. Those who got vaccinated a long time ago. There's some still that are probably on the fence, very few, but a lot of folks are just, they believe faith, God will heal them, and all this, and I tell them, well, God made me. Well, how do I fit in this picture? If we're looking at healing, God made me to, sort of impart information and knowledge and so on and so on as far as helping people get better. But it's been very, 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 very frustrating. And the pain that families go through when they lose somebody, and almost, I told you so. It's terrible.
Dr. Mapp, thank you. We'll go to Dr. Haley. You've given us an idea in the chat. If you would expound on that, sir.
Okay. Let me find out exactly what I wrote and where I wrote it.
You talked about publicizing FDA's approval.
Right. I'm so sorry. That is absolutely true. Several medical professionals right now are pursuing the Pfizer vaccination because they're looking at FDA approval coming out on Monday. Medical professionals who were reluctant, and I know them personally, they're medical professionals, they're in the medical field. They now are pursuing Pfizer vaccination in light of the fact that the FDA is now looking at approving that come Monday. So for those individuals who have a reluctancy, because I've heard it myself, I've gone to medical offices and things like that, and I've asked nurses and various ones, or have you been vaccinated? And they tell me no, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not coming back here to get my teeth worked on. I'm not coming back here to get whatever because they've not been vaccinated. And the reason they give for not being vaccinated is because they don't know what's happened in the medication. The vaccination has not been proven. Well, now the FDA is approving the Pfizer vaccination, so that is something we can promote with hopes of people pursuing their vaccination. And one of the other things I just want to add is I've recently had conversations with many people visiting Florida, from California, from New York, from Houston, Texas. And while they visit here, one of the things they said, they've never seen a place so nonchalant about people wearing masks as Florida. And they said when they're at airports and when they're in various other locations, people are really masked up. But in Florida, there's this nonchalant attitude, and they never seen it so bad. And that is a situation that has to one way. And I think Dr. Mapp and the other gentleman, Russ and various other ones, share with us how masks mitigate the spread. And so that is, I don't necessarily know what other way to promote that other than to promote that as a way to stop it. But also, I thought I might add this. I don't know if Channel 7, Janice, I don't know if Channel 7, Channel 13, I don't know if somebody would be willing to go to the hospital and just do a story, Janice, of the COVID centers there, the people in Baymed, the people in Gulf Coast. I don't know. One medical professional told me they had 100 people at Gulf Coast Hospital with COVID right now. I don't know what it would look like to do a spread like that, a Channel 13 or Channel 7, to help individuals recognize that this is real. And I don't know if one of the stations would want to take that on. They may get flashback or pushback for doing a story like that. But that, I just think, people need to recognize and realize the gravity of what we're dealing with. Just a thought, just throwing that out there, and just wanted to share ways of promoting. I mean, as Bishop Wright was saying, and Dr. Mapp and Reverend Russ, sometimes people just don't recognize the gravity of the situation until something bad happens. Fact of the matter, many of you may or may not know, but we had an individual here recently who contracted COVID. Well, in order to seemingly abate the consequences of the virus, that individual went and got the vaccination after catching COVID. Well, he couldn't have been truthful, otherwise he would not have gotten the vaccination, because you're not supposed to get the vaccination until 90 days after you've had COVID. Well, he got the vaccination while he had COVID. He did not last. It literally killed him.
Thank you,
Just
Dr. We've got a couple of hands raised and some suggestions that are in the chat. So we'll go to Reverend Wright. And Alvin, if Cecile's around, like to call on her to share some of the things that she's put in the chat. Reverend Wright?
I hate to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but this is another thing. I believe that knowledge is power with my whole being. But in our community, because I'm an African-American male, an African-American pastor, an African-American entrepreneur, the problem in our community, when I went to mortuary school in the 1980s, the early 80s was early 80s, HIV and AIDS was not even in our textbook, wasn't in our pathology book, wasn't in our embalming books, nowhere. And when we got to the point that it became a pandemic, and so many people were dying from it, they rewrote those books, and we had to re-educate ourselves how to deal with HIV and AIDS, because it will kill. It's a bloodborne pathogen. So we had to learn about PPE all over again and all of that. The same thing that applies with COVID. My problem in our community is, just like with HIV and AIDS, people started to use these slang terms to talk about it. Like with HIV, AIDS, they got the Kool-Aid, and it became taboo. It became clandestine. It became something that people were putting in the closet, and these people were dying. And so now with this COVID, our people, it bothers me to know not where or when I hear a person say, they say he got that thing. People, this is not a sexually transmitted virus. It's an airborne virus. Dr. Mapp can explain this better than I can, but it's an airborne virus. When I deal with a deceased person, I have to wear PPE, universal precaution. I have to make sure that I prevent any type of escape from any of the airways into the air of my embalming facility. I've got to protect myself because I'm going to come home to my family. I'm going to go back to my church. We've got to be intelligent about this. You're talking about getting to the people, getting the word to the people. You're dealing with people who are using a lot of ignorant terminology, ignorant understanding to something that will kill you, as dead as you can be, as you can die. And so knowledge is power. I'm glad everybody in this room can express what's going on intelligently to each other as we interact here today. But we've got a bigger problem with a millennial. We've got a bigger problem with younger people in our community, and some senior citizens, and some middle agers like myself, who just really don't get it. And they make this so silly to me to say that thing. What thing are you talking about? This, if it's COVID-19, if it's the Delta variant, the Columbia variant, or whatever, this thing that you're calling it, making it taboo, making it like this person ought to be embarrassed because they have it. It can get you at a gas pump, off a surface in your home. Your grandchild can bring it to you. We just had a case of that. The lady never left her house. Somebody brought it in her house. So that's why I'm having such a problem with trying to get our people to a level of intelligence to understand that this is real. It will kill you. You can catch it. You don't have to have sex with anybody. It's airborne. And so that's why I think education is powerful. And what you're doing today, Sister Lucas, is essential. And we need to keep doing this, because I'm telling you, it's a lot of silly stuff said by people. Open your mouth and you remove all doubt of this person really just not being wise or intelligent enough to understand what's happening. That's what we've got to do in our community, in the African-American community.
Thank you, Pastor Wright. We'll go now to Cecile Schoon, and then Pastor Russ has his hand raised. Cecile.
Thank you, Janice. And this is a great opportunity. Thank you for continuing to be such a wonderful resource for our community and your group and the others who are working with you. I'm listening carefully to what I heard some of the pastors indicate. There seems to be a consensus when people see people they know or care about, their family members, that seems to be a turning point for African Americans in particular to change their behavior. And I've certainly seen many articles in newspapers where they're white families where they lost 3 or 4 people and they all of a sudden change. You know, the people were unvaccinated and after the loss, they change. And I think in our very small community, we should make more of a concerted effort to actually post the names and the ages and the race of people who are lost, especially the African Americans. And we can request that information from the Department of Health and from the governor's office. And under the law, they're supposed to give it to us. Now, whether the governor's office wants to post the stats statewide, you know, in a more general way on his own, that's his choice. I don't agree with that. But we as individually as citizens can request that information. And I'd be happy to draft up the request and have the information come to myself and to Tony Bostic and all of the pastors. But I think I like the idea of us saying, look, these are the people we had to say goodbye to. Many of us, you know those people, started, I think the first one that I really knew was Linda Griffin, I guess almost a year ago. And we need to just list the names and the ages and where they vaccinated. And I think that will be a tool that people can use. And then we have no names of people in Bay County that have died from the vaccination. We have no names of people in Bay County, these are living, lost people that we knew, they're gone. And they're, we could actually ask for deaths from the vaccination. That would be interesting. So we're going to the same source and we can show definitively there's 100 names here and no names in the other column. And I just think that's an additional tool for all of us to use, but certainly our pastors who are speaking, to their congregations. So I offer that as one small tool or additional tool that we can give the pastors.
Thank you, Cecile. Pastor Russ and then Pastor Nelson.
Okay, thank you. It's been my experience how difficult it is for people, especially in the Black community, to seem to face their own mortality. A few years ago, it was pressed upon my heart to start some financial literacy. So I started with trying to get people to understand the importance of having insurance or final expense insurance or anything like that. But they still say no, and they still don't, the light bulb doesn't come on until tragedy happens. Then everybody wants to, we got to get together. Okay, let's do a GoFundMe so we can bury people instead of preparing ahead of time. And in this COVID-19 era, I cannot understand how people will discount a board certified, trained virologist, entomologist, over a political appointee that may have a doctorate in as a lawyer. I still say that there's so much politics in this that it is really, really affecting us in a very, very negative way. And hopefully we can learn something from this. But history doesn't seem to be greatly on our side when it comes to that. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Pastor Nelson.
In regards to Mrs. Schoon's recommendation for providing a tabulation of names and ages and ethnicity, vaccine or not vaccinated. I guess one of my questions would be, is that something that we would want to get the family's permission to do? Although it, legally we could probably do it without the family's permission, but then as pastors, is that something that we would want to make sure that we get the family's permissions to do before actually publicizing that family's information that they had a family member die from COVID? So for example, I know within my congregation, our congregation knows who's died from COVID, because we make preparations for the funeral and things. But as pastor, I don't share that information. Oh, this person died from COVID. I allow the family to do that, to share that information that someone has died. So we're just not saying that that's a bad idea. I can certainly see the effectiveness of that, but just wondering, is that something that we would want to do in regards to our permission and actually getting the support of the families and publicizing those names?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wondered about the HIPAA law as far as talking about people's illness or what they're in the hospital for. Because right now doctors won't share with people that aren't on a patient's to share list.
So perhaps one of the things that we can do is create a way for people who want to share that information. There was also a request earlier that perhaps we engage the news media in doing some sort of a story about what's going on in our hospitals. And as someone with a background in journalism, I dare say that the reasons that we haven't seen those kinds of stories have to do with the changing ways that local news is done. It's all corporate owned. And so forth. But what has been and what is most effective are those folks who take their phones out and videotape messages or scenes that they're seeing in these local hospitals. And to the extent that we can get those and broadly publicize them, then after the fact, media will pick up on that. I've seen more stories told that way rather than the news media going in and doing some real journalism. We haven't seen that happening.
And also early on, before our lovely governor got involved, we had more detailed information by race. We might not have had names, but we had numbers. And we can't get that information right now.
Janice, this is Cecile, may I respond? Okay, thank you. Those are excellent points. And yes, Pastor Nelson, you should get consent. And again, we would be happy to create a document that we could all use and that you would explain to the family. And there could be different levels of consent. Some could be that, you could share the information about the death and maybe not the name, depending on the extent that the family feels comfortable. But whatever information we can get collectively is much better than each of the individual pastors, as Tony Bostic said, speaking over the dead body and talking to the family in your own church silo, so to speak. We got to find a better way to communicate and share our information. So I think that's a great idea, and we'd be happy to work up a document and have people utilize that. Going to the governor's probably in his office will not give us the names, but we certainly are entitled to ask for this public information, which we know that they have. And the law simply says if they don't provide it, that's a basis for a lawsuit, which, not saying I don't want to sue anybody in particular, but the law has teeth in it. And this is a public crisis for people to know what's going on. So it would be couched in a way that we need this information so that, and really every county needs this information so that the group that's been most affected by COVID, the group that has the highest vaccination fears and hesitancy is African Americans for many reasons. And we're the ones, again, out doing the face-to-face work, the work where we tend to be more exposed. We don't have as many of us that have white collar jobs. Like I can stay home and write my brief. Many of our people are hands-on out there connecting with other people, and they don't have the chance to quarantine and be away. So yeah, Elvin and I will work on some things and share it around. And I hope that we use those tools and give the information to LEAD and the other agencies that can then hopefully help us create the data so that we actually have, more specific numbers and the races in our community, since that is seemingly what's turning people's minds. And I know the information about the youth getting sick and the youth dying, Dr. Matt shared a lot of that. That is also, I think, going to get people's attention and focus people's interest on the issue of whether it's proper to have mandatory mask requirements in the schools, which is a closely related issue.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to Pastor Friday to round out our discussion. We'll close out with several announcements and just a recap of some of the things that we've said we can do. Pastor Friday.
Yes, I just want to reiterate the point with the disclosure of information. As a pastor, I'm very guarded of my people, and I really look at things from a perspective of confidentiality. And one thing that we can't, as pastors, we cannot lose that confidentiality. However, if the members, they do want to be involved in something like that, I think that would be beneficial. But as pastors, one of the things that we have to be careful of as pastors too, because we have a great deal of influence with our members, and I wouldn't want to. I don't want to cross any lines in that regard, but I do see the benefit if the people were willingly wanted to be involved in something like that, some kind of data bank or whatever like that. I think that would be beneficial.
So there's a idea that's taking traction in the chat about how about an outdoor candlelight memorial service and allow family to call their loved one's name, simply a measure of healing and support. And Pastor Nelson has offered the Macedonia parking lot for that to happen. And sounds like we've got a plan and a place. And so that's something that we can move forward. We just need a date, and we'll help with the logistics of making that happen. So that's something real that's come out of this talk today. So as we are closing, I'm going to go to Tony Bostic in just a moment, but I want to recap some of the things that have been said and highlight a point that was made: difficulty facing their own mortality, that African Americans, people in our neighborhoods, have a difficulty facing their own mortality. And unfortunately, it takes a personal experience of either having the virus and suffering, or the death of someone close, a family, a friend, and so forth. The idea that we can share names of people we've lost to COVID has materialized into a service and a location and a place. Attorney Schoon has offered to create a consent form that can be used for us to tell other people's stories. I think we should take her up on that offer. And then as we continue these Saturday afternoon forums, this is the fourth in a series. We did this at Christmas time with 'Tis the Season to Be Safe. We're doing it now, and we'll do another one next week. Our goal, our topic next week will be to go to the COVID-19 survivors, those who've had COVID, what has been their experience, and those family members who may want to share their experiences. As we are doing this in a 3 to 5 o'clock time period, the number of people who participate online in real time has been multiplied exponentially as we've had hundreds of people view these recorded interviews, a forum. So we're getting the word out. Again, 3 o'clock on on Monday is when we do our daily report. You all are welcome to come or send someone from your congregation to be a part of that congregation. We're looking to put more people on the ground as community health connectors, going door to door and talking to people. That's just how serious this is. In the words of the Reverend Russell Wright, this is real. and people that we know and love in our communities are suffering and dying. And so we go out from this congregation of a forum together to continue to help people make the decisions that's best for them. So want to share with you that we have a testing site that opens tomorrow in Glenwood. It will be at the MLK Center, and the link that Tony was showing earlier that we'll drop in the chat every evening, Tuesday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday will be from 5 to 9 p.m. It's a no-cost testing, either insured or non-insured, and the link here is where you would go and sign up. So we're going to close with some remarks from Tony, and next week we'll convene again at 3 o'clock. COVID at the Crossroads, survivors telling their stories. Tony?
Thank you, Janice. As she just showed, we've got that testing site set up. It's going to be right there at the corner of 14th Court and MLK, right next to the Martin Luther King Rec Center. That'll be from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tell anyone you know to come out and get tested. As they say over in the basic organization, know your status. Know your status. This will kill you quicker than AIDS will. The only thing that's comparable to this is heart attacks and strokes. This will kill you. This is serious, as Dr. Wright said. And as many of you ministers know, you've preached a few funerals over this. And so get your people, have them to get out and get tested. Also, we're putting together a network of nurses. If you know anyone in the healthcare field, LPNs, RNs, respiratory therapists, CNAs, please get them in contact with me. We're working with another organization, myself and Ms. Lucas, to get them, it's a paid position, so you don't have to worry about doing it for free. It's a paid position. Get in touch with me. We need as many in our community that's in the health profession to come out and do this. And we'll be doing it again from 5 to 9 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We're talking about taking it on the road. We're also talking about expanding it into vaccinations. So if you have healthcare professionals within your organization, please have them to get in touch with me. I put my contact information in the chat, but the quick thing about it is 850-624-7322. 850-624-7322. Have them to call me. We can get them registered, get them set up, and we provide everything with it. We provide the gloves, the masks, the face shields. If they need gowns, if they prefer to do it in gowns, we'll provide the gowns as well. We just need somebody, faces like us, in neighborhoods like ours. And so we're doing all we can do to do that. Please have them to get in touch with me, and we can get this going. And thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Ms. Lucas, for facilitating this forum on a weekly basis.
Well, thank you, Tony, for all that you do in our community. As I said last week, and will continue to say, Tony Bostic is the hardest working man in community service when it comes to stopping COVID in our community and other areas as well. And we do appreciate you and thank you. Also want to acknowledge Beverly Wall of Corvus Blue Communications, who's leading up our communication team. We've got an intern from Florida State, recent Florida State communications graduate. We're putting in place the folk that we can have working and dedicated to reducing COVID-19 in our community. We're also able to help those who are homeless or are about to become homeless, as we are working with Doorways of Northwest Florida now to provide that kind of assistance to people, and not only to help in the short term, but we have case managers who can work with them on an ongoing basis to help them to achieve their plans. There's a lot of work that we need to do in Glenwood, Millville, and the Hill and St. Andrews. And it's gonna take all of us working together to do that. And so I appreciate that. Also want to acknowledge at this time, lead board members who are participating or have participated with us today. Alvin Peters, Mr. Matthew Shack, I think I'm missing one more board member. And let me not forget to say a very happy birthday to Jacqueline Washington. We all know and love her. Today's her birthday. So thank you for participating with us on this, your special day. As always, Pastor Brad Friday, also a member of our lead board of directors. Please charge it to my head and not to my heart. Thank you all for everything that you do and that we are able to do together. Each one teach one, make an effort to reach one. We'll see you here next week. Bye-bye.